Okay, good morning BSRT2 students. Welcome back to our virtual classroom. And by the way, congratulations for reaching this far. We are already on the module 11. Okay, so 5 modules more and tapos na yung ating RT212 radiation production and characteristics. Kahit nasa virtual classroom lang tayo. Okay, so Module 10, we discussed all about the electromagnetic spectrum. And one of the important concepts that was embedded in the electromagnetic spectrum is that it has three important parameters, namely frequency, wavelength, and energy. So before we move further, let us consider that X-rays and other forms of electromagnetic radiation behave as wave. Kaya, meron siyang frequency at meron din siyang wavelength. Pag sinabi nating wave, ayun, alon, di ba? Okay, so again, electromagnetic radiation behave as wave. Kaya, ayun. Bakit? Because it possesses both electric and magnetic properties. Okay, so going back. So we have the sine wave model. Sine wave kasi nga yung movement niya is in a form of wave. So the sine wave model of electromagnetic energy describes variation in electric and magnetic fields as the photon travel with velocity. So the important properties of this model are frequency represented by small letter f and the wavelength that is represented by the Greek letter lambda. Sine wave. So when we say wave, kailangan alam natin yung frequency and at the same time yung wavelength. Sir, nasaan na yung energy, di ba? Isa pang important parameter din yon ng electromagnetic spectrum. Mamaya class, wag muna tayong maging excited. Dito muna tayo. Let's discuss first about frequency and wavelength. Again, because electromagnetic radiation has electric and magnetic properties, so theoretically they are expected to move in a wave-like motion. Kaya meron tayong sine wave model. So let us discuss ano nga ba yung frequency. So when we say frequency, this is the rate of rise and fall of a wave. So rise and fall. Rise and fall. So how many times nag-rise and nag-fall? So that is a measure of frequency. So it is usually identified as cycles per second. So the unit of measurement is in terms of hertz. So either you use cycle per second, the negative second, or the hertz, parehas lang yun class. So 1 hertz is equal to 1 cycle per second. Again, 1 hertz is 1, saan na yun? Is 1 per second. Yan. So, the frequency is equal to the number of crests or the number of valleys per unit in time. Let's say, for example, ito yung movement niya in 1 second. So, therefore, we can say that this is the frequency of the electromagnetic radiation. Frequency is the number of waves or wavelengths that pass a point of observation per second. Kaya nga, sabi nga dito, this is the rate of rise and fall of a wave. Okay, so yun that is the frequency. Say, rate of rise and fall, or therefore, this is the oscillation per second. How about wavelength? So when we say the wavelength, this is the distance from one crest to another or from one valley to another. By the way, class, when we say crest, so I know you had this when you were in high school. This is the highest point of a sine wave. When we say valley, or in some of other references, they use the word trough. T-R-O-U-G-H. Okay? So, trough or the valley. So, the crest, we have the crest. So, from one crest to another, so this is a measure of wavelength. Okay? Or from one valley to another valley, so this is also wavelength. Okay? So, wavelength is designated by the Greek letter lambda. So, as the frequency is increased, the wavelength is reduced. So, frequency daw is increased. Yun. That is why the wavelength is reduced. And, pag mas malaki yung wavelength, mas mababa din naman yung frequency. Consider mo to. Dalawang wave. Wave letter A at saka si wave letter B. Asan yung mas maraming crests? Diba ito, si letter B? So therefore, pag mababa or okay, the shorter the wavelengths, the higher is the frequency. And the lower the wavelength, of course, the higher is the frequency. Tama ba yung sinabi ko? Hindi ba kayo na-confuse? Again, pag mahaba ang wavelength, higher yung wavelength, mababa ang frequency. Pag mababa ang wavelength, mataas yung frequency. So, they are inversely proportional. Okay, so ito yung sinasabi natin kanina, the parameter, the relationship of the frequency and the wavelength. So, the three parameters, velocity, frequency, and wavelength. So, considering that X-rays, gamma rays, and electromagnetic radiation, they travel. Okay, their velocity is constant, diba? They travel at c, or the speed of light that is constant in a vacuum, that is 3.0 times 10 raised to 8 meter per second. So, if given the, when we have problem solving na ng mga factors, so hindi na natin nahanapin si velocity. We only need to find frequency and wavelength. So, velocity, frequency, and wavelength are needed to describe electromagnetic energy. So, the relationship among these parameters is important. So, a change in one affects the value of others. Velocity is constant. Velocity is constant and it has a value of 3.0 times 10 raised to 8 meter per second. Remember that class again and again, or that is equivalent to 186,000 miles per second. So a simple mathematical formula called the wave equation expresses this interrelationship. Ano yung relationship? Buti pa sila may relationship, kami wala. Sana all. So ito yung kanilang relationship. Charan! Yan. So when velocity is equivalent to frequency multiplied by the wavelength, or V equals frequency times the lambda. Okay? So, again, class ha, hindi na natin nahanapin si velocity because that is constant. So, ganito yon para mas simple yung pag-analyze natin. Gamitin natin si triangle kasi mahilig tayo sa mga love triangle. So, V equals frequency times the lambda. So, ito si V. Kung hinahanap mo si V, okay, so simply cover natin si V. So, therefore, we have to multiply frequency times lambda. So, gamitin natin. Okay, so let's copy. So, what if we are trying to find the frequency? So, ito si F. So, missing in action si F. So, para mahanap si F, so we have to divide velocity divided by the wavelength. Okay? So, another triangle na pwede nating gamitin to find for the wavelength. Okay? Missing in action sa wavelength. So, meaning we have to divide velocity divided by the frequency. Okay? So, remember mo ha, ano yung pinaka-triangle na applicable for a certain problem. So, by the way, class, velocity is measured in meter per second, frequency in terms of hertz or cycle per second. Ito naman, si wavelength, kasi nga length, okay, in terms of meter, and we have another quantity. Okay, so this is, yun, letter A na may circle sa taas. Tawag dyan is angstrom. Hindi yan ako, angstrong. Mali. Angstrom. Let us clarify ha yung spelling. Letter. Okay, so letter A, N, G, S, T, R, O, M. So, for every 1 angstrom, the equivalent niya is 10 raised to negative 10 meter. Tandaan nyo yan, class, ha? Kasi magagamit yan natin later in our problem solving. Again, for every 1 angstrom, there are 10 raised to negative 10 meter. Okay? So, let's take... Okay, wala pa pala. So, the product of frequency and wavelength always equals the velocity of light for electromagnetic energy. Stated differently, for electromagnetic energy, frequency and wavelength are inversely proportional. Kaya to check mo yung answer mo if it is correct, kailangan yun. So, using the constant proportionality V, again, hindi na natin to hanapin ha. So, we only have to find for frequency and lambda and gamitin nyo na lang yung triangle. What else? So, the product of frequency and wavelength always equals to the velocity of light. Okay? So, parang inulit lang, no? So, let's take this problem. So, what is the frequency of blue light with a wavelength of 4,000 angstrom? So, for our problem, of course, we have to write first our given. So, since we have only one figure given, that is 4,000 angstrom, so that will be our wavelength. So, again, given, first we have our wavelength, which is in terms of angstrom. So, we have 4,000 angstrom. So, since our sine wave equation is expressed in meter, so we need to convert angstrom into meter. Okay, so express this figure into a scientific notation. So, that will give you 4.0 times 10 raised to positive 3 angstrom. So, now we are going to convert again angstrom into meter. So, remember class that for every 1 angstrom, there are 1.0 times 10 raised to the negative 10 meter. Okay? So, cancel natin angstrom. So, what remains is meter. So, we have to combine all the whole numbers and combine all the exponents. So, we only have one whole number. So, that is 4.0. So, exponents, positive 3 plus negative 10. So, that will give you negative 7 meter. Okay, so this is our wavelength. So now, using the sine wave equation, so again, our equation is, so velocity is equivalent to frequency times the lambda. So we're going to find for the frequency. So which means, tabunan natin frequency, so we have to divide velocity divided by the wavelength. So our velocity, this is constant. This is 3.0 times 10 raised to 8 meter per second. So our wavelength, again, that is 4.0 times 10 raised to the negative 7 meter. So we have to cancel out meter. So now, combine all the whole numbers and combine all the exponents. So we have to divide 3 divided by 4. So diba, that 3/4, so meaning that is 0.75. So again, rule of exponent, when we are dividing exponents, we have to change the sign of the denominator, then proceed to addition. So from negative 7, it will become positive 7. Then proceed to addition. So 8 plus positive 7, that will be positive 15. Our unit is now in terms of per second. So this is an improper scientific notation, so therefore we have to convert this into a proper scientific notation, which means we have to move the decimal point going to the right, so which means we have to decrease our exponent. So it will become 7.5 times 10, so our exponent, okay, very good, 14 per second, or that is 7.5 times 10 raised to 14 hertz. Okay, so any questions? Okay, you can do that. Okay, so medyo ma-effort pala yung ganito. From one screen to another screen. Ay, nako, ewan ko lang until when ba to. Okay, next, let's take this problem. So the frequency of a given photon is 27 times 10 raised to 18 hertz. What is the wavelength in terms of angstrom? So remember, we have two SI units for the quantity of wavelength. So we have meter and we have angstrom. Again, remember that for every 1 angstrom, there are 10 raised to the negative 10 meter. Okay, so let's solve this problem in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Okay, so for the second problem, so of course, we need to write our given. So based on our problem, so the given is the frequency, which is 27 times 10 raised to 18 hertz. So what is asked is, we have to find for the wavelength. That is in terms of angstrom. Okay. So, we've given the equation using the sine wave equation. So, when we are going to find the wavelength, so we have to cover wavelength. So, which means velocity divided by the frequency. So, of course, the velocity is constant, which is the speed of light. This is 3.0 times 10 raised to 8 meter per second. Now, let us substitute to find for the wavelength. So to find for the wavelength, so we have again to divide velocity divided by the frequency. So our velocity is 3.0 times 10 raised to 8 meter per second divided by, so this is an improper scientific notation. So we have to adjust our exponent. So since 27 times 10 raised to 18 hertz. So we are going to change that into proper scientific notation. Move the decimal point going to the left. So that will become 2.7 times 10. So what will happen to our exponent? So normally, we move further from the right, diba? Kasi nag-move tayo sa left. So our adjustment will be 19. Okay, so per second. Or hertz. So, cancel natin per second. So, what remains is meter. So, combine all the whole numbers and combine all the exponents. So, we have to divide 3.0 divided by 2.7. So, that will give you, very good, that is 1.11 times 10. So, combine the exponents. So, we have positive 19 and then in the denominator side, we have positive 19. So again, as a rule of thumb, we have to change the denominator from the positive to now become negative. So positive 8 plus negative 19, so that will become negative 11. So our unit is meter. So in our problem, we need to find our wavelength in terms of angstrom. So which means we are going to convert meter into angstrom. So 1.11 times 10 raised to the negative 11 meter. Now we are going to convert that into angstrom. And remember that for every 1 angstrom, there are 1.0 times 10 raised to negative 10 meter. So cancel natin meter. So again, from negative, it will become positive. So that will be 1.11 times 10. So negative 11 plus positive 10. So that will give you negative 1 angstrom. So simplify. Let's move the decimal going to the left. So the simplest answer would be 0.1 angstrom. Okay? Okay. Okay, so now let's come to frequency and energy. Yon, dito, papasok na si energy, the third parameter that was discussed in the last module, the electromagnetic spectrum. So, paano nga ba naka-affect yung energy sa frequency or the other way around? Ano yung effect ni frequency sa energy ng photon? So, X-rays are created with the speed of light. Diba? Sabi nga natin kanina, velocity. And they exist with velocity or do not exist at all. So, that is one of the substantive statements of Planck's quantum theory. So this describes the relationship between energy and the frequency. So photon energy is directly related or proportional to photon frequency, which is different from, of course, the wavelength kasi they are wavelength and frequency are inversely proportional. So dito, when the photon frequency increases, of course, the energy also increases. Kasi nga, they are directly proportional. What else? So, the constant proportionality known as Planck's constant and symbolized by small letter h has a numeric value of 4.15 times 10 raised to the negative 15 electron volt second. So, this is written as 4.15 times 10 raised to the negative 15 electron volt second. So for sine wave equation and Planck's quantum theory, so we are using this value. But if we go to the wave particle duality, ito na yung magiging value niya. So in terms of electron volt second, okay, so in terms of joule second, so 6.63 times 10 raised to the negative 34 joule second. So by the way, class, si electron volt at saka si joules, parehayang SI unit ng energy. So for every 1 joule, there are 6.24 times 10 raised to 18 electron volts, if not mistaken. So next module, we will discuss that, of course, when we discuss the wave particle duality. So mathematically, the relationship between energy and frequency is expressed as charan! Ito. So the energy is equivalent to Planck's constant multiplied by frequency, or E equals H multiplied by F. Again, here in our lesson for this module, we will use the 4.15 times 10 raised to the negative 15 electron volt second. But if you are going to convert the energy of electron volt into joule, so that is a discussion in the following module. Okay, so let's take this problem. So a certain photon produces a frequency of 1.92 times 10 raised to 19 hertz. The question is, what is its energy? Okay, so I will discuss the answer in 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1.
1, 2, 3, go.
Okay, so the next problem incorporates the use of the Planck's quantum theory or the quantum theory. Okay, so now we have the given. Our frequency is, okay, so frequency is 1.92. Pakipos doon.
Go.
Okay, 1.92 times 10 raised to 19 per second, or 1.92 times 10 raised to positive 19 hertz. So, again, the quantum theory is E equals hf. So, this is the Planck's constant. So, now we are going to find for the energy. So, simply, let's substitute. So, h, diba? We have an equivalent value of 4.15 times 10 raised to the negative 15 electron volt second multiplied by our frequency. Okay, 1.92 times 10 raised to positive 19 per second. So we have to cancel per second. So what remains is electron volts. So 4.15 times 1.92, pero ito, okay, so 4.15, sige, edit ko na. 4.15 times 1.92, that is 7.97, okay, times 10. So 4.15 again plus 1.9 times 1.92 is 7.97. So we're going to combine all the exponents. So negative 15 plus positive 19. Okay, so very good. That is positive 4. Our unit is electron volt. So this could be a simplified answer. But if you want to convert this into okay, so if you want to have a simple figure, so you can say that this is 797 kilo electron volt. Okay, but again, this is already the correct answer. 7.97 times 10 raised to 4 electron volt. So I hope nakuha nyo yung you got the same answer, no? So now let's take this problem. Kung kanina we find the value of the energy, now we are going to find the value of the frequency. So what is the frequency of a 72 kilo electron volt X-ray photon? So given the energy 72 kilo electron volt. Yan, mas madali na lang dan. Okay, so okay, by the way class, before I forget, kung kanina sa sine wave equation we used the triangle, parang nauna na kanina sa discussion ko, ano? So when using the sine wave equation, the velocity equals frequency and lambda. So here we also can use the triangle. E equals hf. Of course, hindi na natin hanapin si h kasi constant nga siya. Diba? 4.15 times 10 raised to the negative 15 electron volt second, or that is 6.63 times 10 raised to the negative 34 joule second. So, for example, missing in action si letter E. Yun. So, we need to multiply H and F. So, dalawa lang naman yan eh. Kasi yung isa nga, sabi natin, constant. So, what if missing naman si frequency? So, therefore, we need to divide E divided by H. So, for our answer in this problem, eto na siya. In 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, and... Okay, so our problem, so we need to find the frequency of a given photon. So, given, we have... Pero to? Okay, so given... we have our energy is 72 kilo electron volts. So we need to convert, okay, so we need to convert 72 kilo electron volts into electron volts lang, diba? So for every 1 kilo electron volts, there are how many electron volts? So which is bigger, kilo electron volts or electron volts? So mas dako si kilo electron volts. So for every 1 kilo electron volts, there are 10 raised to 3 electron volts. So cancel natin kilo electron volts. So that will be 72 times 10 raised to 3 electron volts. So to make it into a proper scientific notation, we need to move the decimal point going to the left. So 7.2 times 10, our adjustment for our exponent will become positive 4 since we move further from the right, diba? Patungo tayo sa left. So positive 4 electron volts. Now, substitute our equation, diba? Our equation to find for the energy supposedly is E equals HF. Since we're going to find for the frequency, so we need to divide both sides with the Planck's constant. So, therefore, F is equivalent to E divided by the H. So, our E is 7.2 times 10 raised to 4 electron volts, and our Planck's constant is 4.15 times 10 raised to the negative 15 electron volts. So now we are going to combine all the whole numbers and combine all the exponents. Calculator. So 7.2 divided by 4.15, that is 7.2 divided by 4.15, that is 1.73. Very good ng aking calculator. So, combine all the exponents. So, again, we have to change the sign of the decimal, the denominator. From negative, it will now become positive. So, positive 15 plus positive 4. By the way electron volts second to. So, cancel natin electron volts. So, again, positive 15 plus positive 4, that will become positive 19. So, our unit is per second. Therefore, our answer is 1.73 times 10 raised to positive 15 per second, or that is 1.73 times 10 raised to 19 hertz. Okay? And our last problem for today's discussion, eto na siya. So, our problem, daming problems ng mundo, tapos dinadagdagan pa natin. So, a certain photon produces a wavelength of 2 angstrom. What is its energy? So, hindi lang pala frequency at saka energy. Pwede pa lang sa isang problem may wavelength. So, ano kaya ang gagawin natin? Sige nga. So, I hope you can listen to my discussion. So, sabihin ko na lang, if you have questions, clarifications, violent reaction, you may reach me in different platforms. Bawal lang mang-bash. Okay? In 5, 4, 3, 2, and 1. Sige, okay na? Okay, so the last problem, so that incorporates the use of wavelength, and then we are going to find for the energy of the photon. Okay, so given again, that is the wavelength, 2 angstrom. So first up, of course, we are going to convert angstrom into meters. So, simply, this is equivalent to 2.0 times 10 raised to the negative 10 meter. So, paano natin mahanap si energy with the use of wavelength lang? So, if you can still remember, the formula for Planck's quantum theory is E equals HF. So, now, we are going to replace frequency using now our sine wave equation. So, take note, okay, so when you are going to find for the wavelength, diba class, cover mo yung wavelength, so therefore, the speed of light divided by the frequency. Okay, so speed of light divided by the speed of light divided by the wavelength. So cover mo si frequency kasi we're going to replace frequency here. Speed of light divided by the wavelength. Okay, so substitute our value for the Planck's constant. Again, this is 4.15 times 10 raised to the negative 15 electron volt second. Okay, multiplied with the speed of light, which is constant. This is 3.0 times 10 raised to 8 meter per second. So we are going to cancel per second. So our wavelength is so this is 2.0 times 10 raised to negative 10 meter. Okay.
Yan.
Okay, so let's cancel out meter and meter. So now let us combine all the whole numbers and combine all the exponents. Of course, we have to start with the numerator side. Okay, 4.15 multiplied by 3.0. So that will give you 12.45. Ang galing talaga ng mga estudyante. Kahit hindi naman sumasagot, magaling pa din. Okay, so negative 15 plus positive 8. Of course, that is negative 7. So, our unit is electron volt. So, wala naman tayong ibang variables sa denominator. So, that will be 2.0 times 10 raised to negative 10. So, 12.45 divided by 2 again. So, that will give you 6.23 times 10. So, as a rule of exponent again, when we divide exponent, we have to change the sign of the denominator, then proceed to addition. So, from negative 10, it will become positive 10 plus negative 7. So, that will become, so positive 10 plus negative 7, that is positive 3 electron volt. So class, this is our answer. 6.23 times 10 raised to positive 3 electron volts. So if you have concerns, if you have answers, clarifications, violent reactions, of course, you may comment this in your video, or of course we have different platforms. So now you can do our exam. Okay, bye!